The Roman Empire, in one form or another, existed for approximately 1500 years, emerging from an ancient Italian capital to dominate Europe and the Mediterranean, stretching from Britain in the west to Iran in the east and North Africa in the south. The empire was constantly at war, maintaining and expanding its vast borders. This made the life of a Roman soldier difficult and dangerous, traveling the world in the hope of completing his service and reaping the rewards of glory. While Roman political life was often complicated and constantly changing, no Roman emperor was ever more powerful than his army. The success, and often the life, of an emperor depended on his popularity with the legions and their victories abroad. The already massive Roman Republic transformed into an empire with the rise of Augustus in 27 BC. It became customary for a new emperor, upon taking the throne, to appease his vast army and show respect by offering a monetary gift known as a donum. If he failed to do so, his reign would likely be short-lived. The army was the true kingmaker in Rome. If an emperor made the mistake of allowing the treasury to run dry and missed payments, or if a bloody and unpopular war dragged on, it was not uncommon for soldiers to turn against their beloved emperor and proclaim their popular general as his replacement. It is therefore no surprise that the army wielded such power, with an unmatched military force and millions of soldiers drawn from a vast empire. These highly trained soldiers formed a formidable force, responsible for maintaining conquests and ensuring that taxes continued to flow to the capital. The army was commanded by members of Rome's upper class and was composed of individual legions containing around 5,000 men each. These legions were divided into cohorts of 500 men, which were further divided into centuries of 80 to 100 men. At its greatest extent, under the reign of Septimius Severus around AD 200, the army numbered approximately 500,000 men. Throughout its history, the empire rarely relied on conscription. At the age of 18, a poor young peasant with no other prospects would have seen the army as a way out of poverty. The army offered good pay, excitement, the opportunity to see the world, and a comfortable pension at the end of service. However, with so many men to choose from, the army could afford to be selective. Only the strongest and fittest were accepted, and after months of intense training, recruits from various nationalities were molded into an organized force capable of outperforming most enemies in the world. Thus began the long and grueling career of a Roman soldier. Roman soldiers were more than just sword-wielding warriors. Most of their time was not spent in battle, but building forts, bridges, aqueducts, and roads. They were the great builders of the empire. They marched long distances in uniform and armor, covering up to 25 miles per day. It was exhausting work, marching in all weather, wearing tunics, heavy metal armor, and helmets, while carrying up to 70 pounds of equipment, including their sword, shield, javelin, food, cooking pots, and everything needed to construct camps and barricades. At the end of the daily march, the soldiers' immediate commander was the centurion, who marched alongside them, not of high enough rank to ride a horse, shouting right, left, right, left. Centurions were the backbone of the army, handling all aspects of daily soldier life, ensuring discipline and order, and, in battle, leading from the front while issuing commands. After a long march of around 6 hours, the soldiers would stop to establish camp. Some stood guard throughout the night, and during their stay, duties also included unpleasant tasks such as cleaning latrines. It was not always a glorious life. Any distraction to this well-oiled military machine was discouraged, and soldiers were forbidden to marry during their service. Many young lovers were left behind with promises to return 25 years later if they survived. In the meantime, their only companionship came from their brothers in arms. Each tent housed 8 men, often from different regions of the empire. For meals, they received a pound of pork and some bread, and in their free time they gambled, shared stories of past glories, and reminisced about forgotten homes. To cope with the pressures of military life, soldiers found comfort in the camaraderie of their comrades. They shared daily rituals, jokes, and stories that strengthened their bond and eased the burden of responsibility. Evenings around the campfire were often filled with songs, epic tales, and rites of passage that celebrated their collective identity as Roman legionnaires. Soldiers also benefited from occasional leave, during which they could return home or relax in camp. However, such leave was rare and unpredictable, making each return all the more precious. Military life, though demanding and often cruel, also provided a sense of belonging and structure that many found comforting. Veterans, after years of service, were often granted land as a reward for their loyalty and bravery. This allowed them to live more peaceful lives, sometimes as farmers in conquered provinces, passing down their stories and military legacy to the next generation. The Roman Empire, while a military colossus, was also a cultural melting pot. Soldiers were exposed to new ideas, beliefs, and practices through contact with different cultures during their campaigns. This diversity enriched their own culture, and many returned home not only with wealth, but also with knowledge and varied experiences. Thus, the life of a Roman soldier was a blend of hardship, heroism, camaraderie, and culture. It was an existence where loyalty, sacrifice, and honor formed the core of their identity, deeply woven into the grand history of the Roman Empire. Religion played a major role in the Roman army. In camp, sacrificial offerings of rams or bulls were made by commanders, while religious officers and shrines were available for soldiers' prayers. Despite their rank, the daily life of a centurion was just as demanding. Unless born into a military family or sponsored by a powerful patron, it would take around 15 years for an ordinary soldier to be promoted to centurion. During this time, he would have marched thousands of miles, leaving both body and mind scarred by constant warfare. Surviving battle against an enemy was one challenge, but threats existed on many fronts. For the Roman soldier, disease was as deadly as any enemy, with plagues in particular devastating large portions of the legions, especially where wounds weren't treated and corpses were left to rot. For the centurion, although his men were generally loyal and obedient, he still had to watch his back, give orders day and night, and carry a large staff used to strike anyone who showed discipline. Centurions were often resented by their men and sometimes became victims of mutiny, especially during times of uncertainty or unrest. When the day of battle arrived, the legions formed tight ranks as centurions relayed orders to guide their units towards victory. Unlike higher-ranking commanders, centurions did not stay behind. They were soldiers themselves, experienced ones, and were expected to lead from the front. The highest-ranking centurion, commanding the best century of the legion, was accompanied by the aquilifer and bore the additional responsibility of protecting the legion's eagle standard from enemy hands. The Roman army employed tactics and strategies that often surpassed those of their enemies. Typically, volleys of arrows were exchanged, while Roman soldiers formed a shield wall known as the testudo formation for protection. Once close enough, the Romans hurled their javelins and engaged in close combat. Their short, lightweight swords demanded intense fighting. On the battlefield, the bodies of friends and enemies lay everywhere, but more often than not, the Roman legions, though diminished, remained standing. In time, surviving soldiers were tasked with collecting and burying the dead, but for the moment they could breathe, having survived to fight again. Many others were not so fortunate. The average Roman man lived only about 41 years, meaning most never completed their 25 years of service. Death or retirement was the only way out of military life. The Roman system, deeply rooted in social class, limited high command positions to the elite, placing hopes of promotion to a safe and comfortable role beyond the reach of the common soldier. And although the risk was great and the fear of death constant, the hope of relative peace or assignment to a calm region always remained. Some were luckier than others. For the average centurion, having spent years reaching that rank, and with most of his service behind him, the end was in sight. When it finally seemed worth it, all soldiers earned decent pay and received several acres of land upon retirement, but a centurion earned 10 times more than his men. Though it was a dangerous and demanding life, survival meant great wealth, allowing them to live in comfort and luxury they could never otherwise have achieved. They hoped their loved ones waited at home and rested knowing their future children would enjoy the privileges earned through service. Every day in the life of a Roman soldier was either a march towards death or one step closer to retirement. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Once you've done that, why not check out the rest of our videos? Glory awaits.